Hello, and welcome to your Pilgrim's Human Rights Induction. Throughout this short video, we will explain what human rights are, why they're important, and how we make this happen in practice. There'll be a couple of questions to test your knowledge at the end of this module. So, if you're ready, let's begin. So, just what are human rights? Well, they're the minimum rights for all people in the workplace. Human rights are set by international organisations such as United Nations, International Labour Organization and Ethical Trading Initiative. These apply all over the world, and if no law exists, it replaces the gap in the law. The ETI base code from the Ethical Trading Initiative is founded on the conventions of the International Labour Organization, ILO, and is an internationally recognised code of good labour practice. It is viewed as a global reference standard and is widely used as a benchmark against which to conduct social audits and develop ethical trade action plans. There are 9 key points to discuss, and these are: 1. Employment is freely chosen. Slavery and bonded labour are totally unacceptable. Almost 21 million people are victims of forced labour. 2. Freedom of association and the rights to collective bargaining are respected. Tens of thousands of workers lose their jobs every year for attempting to form or join a trade union or improve working conditions. Some even lose their lives. 3. Working conditions are safe and hygienic. An estimated 2.3 million people die every year from work-related accidents and diseases. 4. Child labour shall not be used. 168 million children work to support their families, missing out on education and often damaging their health. This reinforces the cycle of poverty. 5. Living wages are paid. Roughly half the world's population still lives on $2 a day. If people can't feed their families on an adult's wage, they may send their children to work. 6. Working hours are not excessive. Long working hours are the norm for most of the world's workers. This damages people's health and undermines family life. 7. No discrimination is practiced. Women and certain minorities are often confined to the lowest paid jobs with no access to training or promotion. 8. Regular employment is provided. Most workers can be laid off when it suits the employer. This fuels poverty and insecurity and drives down wages. And finally, 9. No harsh or inhumane treatment is allowed. Few workers have protection against physical, verbal, and sexual abuse in the workplace. The reasons why human rights are important is that, crucially, the rights of workers are to be protected. Human rights sets the minimum standards we follow for our customers. Our customers expect all of their suppliers to treat the people who work for us with dignity and respect. Human rights also protect people from being exploited, and we also expect our suppliers of ingredients and packaging to follow the same standards. So, how do we make sure that this happens in practice? Well, we internally check and audit our sites, including talking to workers. We'll undertake external checks on all label providers used by Pilgrims. We undertake external audits on our sites, which we share the results of with customers. You may, whilst working here, be asked to talk to an auditor. This is normal, and you must be honest about how you feel and how you are being treated. All information is kept confidentially. We also ask for external audits on our suppliers to check conditions on their sites, both in the UK and across the world. Workers are being exploited through modern slavery in a number of different scenarios. Some of these are human trafficking, moving people through threats, force or coercion in order to exploit them. Forced labour, forcing someone to work against their will under the fear of a penalty. Rogue landlords, who house people in overcrowded and unsafe properties, often with threats of eviction or other intimidation. Work finding fees. In the UK, it's unlawful for workers to be required to pay to get a job. Migrant workers with limited English language and who have a lack of knowledge of rights and how to enforce them are most at risk of modern slavery, as well as vulnerable individuals. The vulnerabilities traffickers may prey upon are homelessness or poverty, immigration status, drug and alcohol dependency, a difficult family background, mental health problems, they may be a child, have limited access to education, and finally, geographic instability, natural disaster and war. There may be threats of or actual physical or sexual violence in order to control a worker. There may be a restriction of movement and confinement to a workplace or to a limited area. Another tactic used is debt bondage, where a worker works to pay off debt or a loan and is not paid for his or her services. Another example may be the withholding of wages, refusing to pay the worker at all, or excessive wage reductions. The retention of passports and identity documents, and the threat of reporting to the authorities. Usually the people that are exploiting the victims are small organised gangs, often families, and often the same nationality as those they exploit. They are experts at spotting vulnerable people, controlling them, maximising the money they make from each worker, and keeping hidden workers may not consider themselves as victims or too frightened to report it. But working together, we can reduce this hidden exploitation.
I saw an advert online for a building job in the UK. I called this Polish guy. He told me it would cost £400 but promised regular work as soon as we arrived. He said he would sort out somewhere to live with the other men I would be working with. I was happy and optimistic. I had lost my job in Poland and had no money. I was told I could pay for my transport and accommodation out of my first month's wages. It looked like a chance for a new life. I was driven to the UK in a minibus with some other people and dropped off outside the accommodation.
I came to the UK 3 years ago looking for work. I got some occasional shifts as a cleaner, but I wanted a permanent job with a regular pay. A friend told me he knew someone who could find work for me in a salad packing factory, and he gave me a number to call. I called the number. It was a Lithuanian man. He said the work was guaranteed. I transferred £300 to him, and he told me to contact a lady at a recruitment agency who would organize the work for me. I started temporary work at the factory through the recruitment agency, and things were better. Even though I wasn't earning a lot of money, I finally had a routine and some stability in my life.
A man picked me up in a BMW, took me to a house and told me I could stay there, but I would need to pay a £250 deposit for the rent. I had no money, so he said he would add it to what I owed him for transport. He took my passport and identity card to complete the paperwork for my job. I lived with some other men who had also come over to find work. The house was overcrowded with dirty mattresses and sheets. It didn't feel safe. The job I was promised didn't exist. I wasn't given work for 6 weeks. I was living with no money to support myself and completely dependent on the agent for my living costs. Each week I owed him more money since I was building up debt for food and rent. The agent made me open a bank account so I could apply for jobs, but he kept the bank card.
I applied for a permanent job at the factory. The man who arranged the job called me and said that I had to pay him another £500 now that I had a permanent job. I told him I didn't have enough money. and he threatened to send some people to collect the money from me. The week after, I was walking home from work when a man stopped me. He grabbed me by the throat and demanded I give him money to repay my debt. He told me he would find me again soon. I heard that other people from the factory owed this gang money too. Some of them quit their jobs and went back to their home country. I eventually saved up and paid back the £500, but they told me that I owed them interest because I hadn't paid them back on time.
I was taken to recruitment agencies to apply for jobs. He told me to give his address instead of the one I was living at. He told me a mobile phone number to give, as a recruitment agency would text me when more work was available. I was given a temporary job packing chicken in a factory. As soon as I was paid each week, he would use my bank card to take out all of my wages to cover the money I owed for travel and accommodation. He gave me only £20 a week to buy food. I felt constantly threatened by him. Once, when I had been given only 3 days' work, he got angry and punched me in the face, leaving me with a black eye. I felt ashamed that I had got myself into this situation, but there was no one I could turn to for help. He had total control of my life, and I didn't think I would ever get out of the death I was in.
At the weekend I went to do my shopping with a friend, and we were attacked by the gang. I was pushed around, and my friend tried to argue with them. They broke her jaw, and she had to be taken to hospital. I was terrified. My life was totally miserable. I didn't leave the house for months, except for work. And I couldn't sleep because I was too scared that the gang might come to my house in the night. I wanted to ask for help, tell someone what was going on, but I didn't know who could help. I thought about calling the police, but I didn't know if they would understand or help, and I was scared that the gang would find it out. A detective came to my house with a Lithuanian translator and said he was investigating a gang that had been threatening workers in the area. He said that he could protect me from them. I told him everything that had happened, and he asked me if I would be willing to give evidence in a trial.
After I had worked and lived like this for over a year, the police and Gangmasters Licensing Authority came to my house one day. They took me to a place where I could recover, be helped to find a good job, support myself. This is all I ever wanted.
4 men were arrested from the gang. And later I found out that there were dozens of workers at the factory who had been threatened by this gang. The police found new homes to those who had been badly hurt, and they also arranged protection for their families in Lithuania.
I'm all right now, working a new job here for a good agency. But I've been through a tough time. When I look back at everything that's happened, I realize how easy it is to get trapped in a really bad situation. I should never have paid for a job that I didn't know existed.
I should never have paid for a job. This is not legal in the UK.
I should never have given away my passport and identity card. By then, it was already too late.
I should never have got into debt with someone I didn't know or trust.
I was stuck in debt to him, and he controlled my bank account. I was afraid that he would attack me if I did anything wrong. I know there are still many more people who are trapped like I was.
If my story sounds like yours, or someone you know, please be aware there are several ways to get help and to get out of this position.
Don't get trapped like I was. And if you know anyone who is, contact the Gangmasters Licensing Authority or Migrant Help. Anything you say will be kept confidential.
If you are being threatened, or you think you're in immediate danger, please call the police by dialing 999. Don't suffer in silence.
We distribute worker leaflets and display posters to raise awareness. We then build on that awareness by educating workers and supervisors. We're implementing preventative and highlighting measures and working together with trade unions or employee representatives. We're also implementing channels for workers to report exploitation. Please report the following: forced labour, human trafficking, rogue landlords, and work finding fees. And whilst you're in work, tell a trusted manager or worker representative. Leave a message or note, and please tell us. Outside of work, if you or somebody else is in immediate danger, call the police on 999. If it's not an emergency, call the local police on 101. For personal help and support for victims, call the Modern Slavery Helpline on 08000 121 700 or the Salvation Army on 0300 303 8151. And finally, you can report it to the Gangmasters and Labour Abuse Authority confidentially by calling 0800 432 0804. We work together with other suppliers and customers to share intelligence in tackling modern slavery. We have unannounced audits and worker interviews and have further training for supervisors and line leaders to help spot the signs. The ethics line and whistleblowing lines are available. If you have any suspicions, please report to the HR department. Not only do we tackle modern slavery, we also assist in survivors recovering from the effects of modern slavery. The Bright Future programme helps survivors of modern slavery back to work. It's a 4-week paid work placement with a non-competitive job interview for a permanent position. We have helped over 15 people back into full-time work using this programme, and we are very proud of that. So, that's it. Thank you for your time during this Pilgrim's Human Rights induction. As we mentioned earlier, a couple of questions will follow this video in which you will have to get a 100% right in order to pass. So, good luck, stay vigilant, and I'll see you soon.